Welcome to the scariest university in America, San Diego State University, SDSU, home of the Aztecs, ladies and gentlemen, and home of numerous brain cancer cases. An original cluster in 2008 and subsequent cases since then. It's beyond what's expected due to statistics. Now, we're going to be covering the latest news and the background of the original cluster. It is a very disturbing situation, but everybody should know, if you've got kids and you're sending them into the schools, you should know what kind of what kind of situation we're dealing with. Beyond the original cluster, we're seeing numerous other cases of very rare cancers, ladies and gentlemen, and they all have certain things in common. Most of them are journalists or political science majors, and they're all frequenting the same building. One room in particular, room 131 at Nassatir Hall, ladies and gentlemen, San Diego State University. You can look this up for yourself. We've got some rather interesting insights as far as this is concerned. We've got so much information to cover. We're going to be focusing more and more on death towers as they roll out the 5G. This is the time to stop it before it's too late, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about the metrics. We're going to be talking about the numbers a little bit. It's a little confusing. We're going to be talking about what you can do to defend yourself from this, radioactive rape. Quite literally. You should inform yourself on what's going on in the world of the invisible. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it isn't there. Guidelines are set up to protect you. And what we're finding by controlling the RF frequencies ourselves is that the situation is much worse than it seems, ladies and gentlemen. It's really incredible when you think about it, how many death towers there are in America and how many more are slated to arrive. It is a disaster, ladies and gentlemen, to say the least. It is a disaster. We've got quite a bit of footage that we want to cover, and we're just trying to get our bearings straight. Here, again, you can do your own research on the cancer cluster SDSU. Quite a few students died in this cluster, and professors and teachers' assistants and the like. This is the death tower right behind Nassatir Hall. You're not going to see much footage of it, but it could be this and something else. We're going to be talking about the statistics, why this case stands out. We've got a list of names here of people that were afflicted by this radioactive exposure, ladies and gentlemen. And while many of them died all around the same time in 2008, there are other cases that we've seen that are not on this list. There are more people that were affected by this 2008 outbreak than is listed here and that is in the documentaries, but these reports have been highly suppressed. You would think that more attention would be paid, and what happens when you ignore history is that history tends to repeat itself, and this is why they do scientific studies on what's going on out there, because they know that certain variables, certain environmental factors will have a cause and effect on human health, biology, psychology, and many other things. What we're finding out as far as EMF frequencies is that not only does it induce a long list of pathologies, but it interrupts the electrical wiring of the brain. There are strong links between EMF exposures during pregnancy and autism, as much so as with vaccines and pesticides. But they're all neurotoxins. They all attack the nervous system, and synergistically together, even though they might be under some sort of limit together the cocktail effect is very unpredictable, as are just makeshift experiments. You never know when your local university is going to be running an experiment using some high-end antennas. And even, the super rich and famous are being exposed by, their, radars on their yachts. There's a lot of cases of billionaires kicking off early, and they all had yachts. I wouldn't want to be near one of these things. And you can't have a yacht without, like, this kind of contraption. But the readings are enormous. And you can find out exactly what's going on in your area by getting a GQ EMF 390 featured here. Information will be in the comments and in the chat. Many people have already ordered. We're going to be setting up a community to trade basically best practices as well as trade peak readings. And we're going to put this on a map. And eventually, as we fill up the map, we'll release that to the public. But right now, they've wiped all the Death Tower maps. You cannot find where these Death Towers are in your community. They're hiding them. And they're getting clever too, especially with the 5G. It'll just, they can set it up so it's just like a long radio antenna if they want to. We've seen some of the new ones, and it's rather scary. They're not all going to look like these Death Towers, but here's something that you probably didn't know, ladies and gentlemen. A cell phone itself has a range of 22 to 45 miles, optimal. So if you're, in the prairies, right, on the flatlands, you can broadcast 45 miles away with a 5-watt cell phone, a normal cell phone. That's incredible. That's incredible. These Death Towers can go further, but they're limited by the cell phone range. Now, a NEXRAD radar, which broadcasts at 2.7 gigahertz, can reflect images back approximately 400 miles away, 300 to 400 miles away. We're looking at kilometers, so let's just say 300 miles away is the average range for NEXRAD. This technology can penetrate far, and the frequency is, it's all about the frequency and the power density. And this is something that people just are completely oblivious to as they're walking around because they have no way to measure it. There's no, public utility meters out there for your safety telling you what the exposure is in that area. And there really should be, especially in the urban environments. Because even though these cell phones have a range of 45 miles away, what they experience in the urban environment is interference from other antennas. So their range is diminished, but the power is not. So you get like this, you can imagine white noise of RF radiation just, ricocheting off the buildings at the speed of light, raping you, passing through you. They're made to pass through buildings. They're made to pass through everything, although you do get substantial protection inside a building from most of these RF towers. But then comes, the Wi-Fi and all of the gadgets, and you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, how much pollution there is indoors. They say that the indoor pollution is worse than the outdoor pollution. That's the same thing for radio frequency radiation as well. We've covered cases, we've covered the clusters, we've covered the studies, we've covered the evidence. It's listed as a carcinogen, but people aren't aware of the dangers because the dangers exist, but they fluctuate depending on your area, depending on your gadgets, really, on the inside of the home. And there's just so much to cover. I've got a whole lot of information that I want to cover on this, and I just don't want to get sidetracked with indoor RF radiation. But I was at Best Buy today, and I was testing out different equipment there for electrical fields and magnetic fields, and not every computer, not every laptop is the same. And you might think that the higher end stuff is better, and usually it is. But we've seen that the MacBook Pro is highly radioactive in terms of its electric field, whereas the MacBook Air is not. We've noticed that desktop computers are much safer than the laptop computer, and everybody's computer, in terms of like where you put your hands on the keyboard, is highly radioactive. And you know, when you think of all the blood passing through your wrists, and your wrists are resting on the laptop, you're getting dosed. And you want to get an external keyboard for your laptop. It's a hot product. And everything that's wireless is hot. And you know, we could go on and on. We're going to get more into how to protect yourself. What are the dangers? We just want to go back a little bit to this outbreak at San Diego State University. And this is probably true in a lot of universities. Now, just take the 2008 outbreak. We've got we've got probably at least 5 or other 10 cases that made the news since then with brain cancers at SDSU. Now, I want to go over the statistics. How probable is this, or how improbable is this? What we're seeing here. If you reference NIH Cancer Statistics Review, and they've got quite a bit of information. Pick and choose. This is probably the easiest way to demonstrate incidence of cancers and U.S. deaths, 2012-2016, 5-year study, and the average rate is about 500 people, approximately 400 or 500 people, depends if you're a man or a woman, per 100,000. Okay, so we can do some simple math and figure out how common is this. Now, of course, in statistics, you kind of have to look at age groups a little bit. Now, this is from the NIH as well, from their website. And this is age distribution chart, races and sexes. Now, what we're just going to focus on is the age groups from 20 to 34, which covers the college students. It's basic logic here. Then you've got all the other tranches. And they say here 1% of all cases are under 20, and 2.8 are all cases under 34, 20 to 34. So, most college students are done by 21, 23 if you're a slacker. And so, look, even if we take the worst case scenario and round up 5%, 5% of the cases should be the college student age. So if you can follow the math of 5% of 500 out of 100,000 cases. When you do the math with San Diego State University, which has about 33,000 students, here's another case. 33,000 students, they should get theoretically between 3 and 8 cases a year. 8 being the high. I would say more like 3 or 4 if you did the math right down the middle. And when you see a cluster all coming from the same room, you're seeing like 8-10 cases associated with the same room, probably 20 or 30 from the same building. And it's just like numerous cases. It's taking a little while to load, of course, while we're screenshotting all of this. SDSU graduate uses her battle. So this is all coming from the Daily Aztec. This is the San Diego State University paper. Now it's all in the Aztec. It's all press 2 for English, but in any case, it's case after case. There's a lot of you'll hear them focus on the survivors more. I'm sure there's a lot more cases here. I'm sure this is just like the tip of the iceberg. Cancer can't stop SDSU student. So this is after the initial cell. All of these cases that we're seeing here are after the initial cell. This one actually is before. It seems like they have a history here. And look, many times it's it's a cumulative effect of factors that begins the onset. But what we're seeing is with these cases, they're all extremely rare. Most of them are brain or neurological, which fits the RF radiation profile. And so I think this would be, it would be safe to say here that there's an issue with whatever is going on at this university. And what we're finding, through different studies and the like, is that most inner cities, downtown, commercial districts are hardcore radioactive. If you live in these areas or work in these areas, you should be aware of your surroundings, and literally it's worth the career move, because these things are a ticking time bomb. And we're going to get into the numbers as far as what's safe and what we're actually seeing here. This is one demonstration. The thing with these meters and these fields is that they're measuring different things in different units, and the math gets a little tricky. So we're going to start putting out tables and easy metrics for people to figure out, if you're in the danger zone, especially with like this EMF 390. If we can standardize our measurements. Oh shit. The video guy is so fired there. We do apologize. So here is an image, and we'll provide this on the product page of kind of like a control or a calibration, proof of calibration of the EMF 390. They're all at the same source. They're all registering around the same numbers. You've got the gigahertz solution, the tri-field. These are, about twice as much, if not more, than the EMF 390. It's a quality product. You can do your research. Everybody that's got one is happy as can be. We're providing it. We're selling it through the manufacturer as an affiliate at the manufacturer's price. And so you're getting it at the same price as everybody else. You click on our link and we get credit for it. But we're going to be using that to collaborate all of our data and figure out what the hotspots are. I'm cruising around. I already got the setup today to take the show mobile. We're going mobile for a while. And we're basically going to go from hotspot to hotspot. And we're also going to go through, techniques as far as figuring out what you're actually looking at. And I think, this device can measure in numerous different metrics, whether it be in volts per meter, whether it be in milligauss, Teslas. It can record in watts per meter squared and watts per centimeter squared. So there's a lot of math. There's a lot of readings that this thing can do. It's also like an RF sweeper. You can see if there's like a spy camera, a wireless camera. You can isolate frequencies from a key fob with this thing. I mean, this isn't a gadget. It's a device, and it's at a really good price. That's why I was looking for one just for myself, and I was sifting through the competition. I saw that this one had more features, had a larger bandwidth, which is really important. We should really talk about the bandwidth. And it covered all three spectrums: electric, magnetic, radio frequencies. It was by far, the best product out there, and for the price. And their customer service is wonderful. And as a group, we're if we've got an issue somewhere, we'll be able to overcome it more easily. And I could talk to you about my engineering days at Apple and all that. I'm not going to bore you with that, but this is a quality product. And as new products evolve, they keep getting better. Now this is like the third generation. They also do Geiger counters and the like. We're going to be getting into that. I think everybody should get a Geiger counter and an EMF 390. But the Geiger counters, their entry ones are like $70. So I think we're going to be getting into that next, comparing the readings. Most people aren't in a position to defend themselves right now. They can't buy organic. They can't escape the death towers. They can't escape the fallout from the chemtrails. They can't escape the mandated vaccines. We're not getting a whole lot of support from 1600 on 5G or on vaccines or on many other things. So what we've learned is that speaking truth to power doesn't work. but speaking truth to the powerless, you know, pisses them off. And raising awareness is what's going to make a difference. And if everybody is running around out there with an EMF meter, talking about the dangers, talking about 5G, you know, things can happen. And that's basically what we need in this country. It's becoming, you know, third world out there in many places. And raising awareness is what they don't want. They're censoring everybody. It's a, you know, it's like the Gestapo out there. It's like they never read the Constitution. The First Amendment applies to everyone, not just their cohorts. But, you know, they'll call you haters to take away your free speech if you let them, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be distracted by the deception. And this is going to be an excellent way, because they need this 5G for their Skynet, for their Robocops, their Terminators. It's coming. It's all coming, and it's all going to be because of 5G. And if you've got 5G in your neighborhood, you're going to be seeing robots in your neighborhood. And so if you want to keep the Skynet out, you want to keep the Terminators out, keep the 5G out of your town. And the best way to do that is to start a city ordinance. Now we're going to be talking about, you know, there's FCC regulations that basically prohibit cities from stopping these death towers. That's something that must stop. State powers, ladies and gentlemen. You know, it's that kind of country. It's equal powers between state and federal, but the federal wants the monopoly. You know, they want to fuse everything with their DHS, and they're coming. They're coming for it all. And in the wake of their, you know, arrival, you see this trail of destruction of human lives that have been corrupted and destroyed by the television, the propaganda, the indoctrination, the politics, the television, the movies, the music. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to fight back. And, you know, they're using stealth weapons. We covered this a couple days ago, how conservative communities are targeted the most by these weapons. And that's exactly what they are. These death towers, the way they're set up, they're weaponized. And they're causing cancer. And people should get on, you know, on the bus, get on the train. In any case, there's quite a few interesting videos out there on this subject. And, you know, in this one, this is a video from a guy in Long Beach, California. And he's showing, you know, kind of like a chart. Now, this one is measuring in microwatts per meter squared. That little U is the sign for micro. So you're going to have to, you know, get up on your math a little bit, because we're taking measurements as low, as finite with the EMF in the nanowatts, nano, pico, micro, milli, and then you get into the watts. Micro is really high up there on the scale. Now it's in meters squared. You also see some devices measure in centimeters squared. That's like a logarithmic factor of 10 difference. So it turns everything a little bit different. It shifts all the measurements by a decimal place, but it makes a big difference. We'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about what we're finding in our area, and we'll be talking a little bit about what we're finding in other people's areas. Now, from the manufacturer of the EMF 390, GQ Electronics, they tell us that you can get dosed all the way up to 10 milliwatts per centimeter squared, which is at about 100 watts per meter squared. Huge. I can tell you, I live out in the country. I can tell you the measurements that we're getting out in the country compared to the city. Now, this guy is measuring electric fields in volts per meter. He might actually be in millivolts. Now, there's some basic power density tables out there that translate, volts per meter into milligauss, into Teslas or microteslas, into watts per meter squared, and the like. But this guy, and now here's another thing too that's interesting about these two videos that we're going to be featuring here. These were recorded in 2012, which we're back in the days when I was still at Apple. The iPhone 3 just rolled out. Everything was pretty much in 3G. 4G was just about to hit the market, and so the power scales are lower by a factor of 10 or 100 compared to what we find out there today. you think the readings that, you know, some of these videos that you see from 2012 are high, you should see the readings that are out there today. Because these people are freaking out over readings that are significantly lower than what you'll find today. And that's the thing. And, you know, especially in the schools now, you know, every kid is using a computer, and those computers hook up to a router that isn't like your router at home. You know, most home routers have a limit of like, you know, 5, maybe 10 devices. But, you know, the routers at the schools are using, are having to connect, you know, hundreds of devices to them. And so they're much, much more powerful. It's like a death tower, you know, hanging right over their heads. And obviously, yeah, they're, you know, 1 in 5 kids are autistic these days, and they're on, you know, meds and all sorts of stuff, you know, no doubt. Now, we've got another video. This guy was at the Sizzler in Big Bear. I used to live in Big Bear back in the day, way, way back. Now, here's a death tower, you know, near the Sizzler. Now, he was registering 31,000 microwatts per meter squared. And that ends up, I think we did the math here somewhere on this one. But that ends up being, you know, I think 31 milliwatts per meter squared. And that's nothing compared to what I'm registering out there today. 31 milliwatts is a good day in the dark matrix. Yeah, you want to know how bad you're getting cooked. Now, the thing with these meters, I think these meters are just a little bit more expensive than the EMF390. But look at it, right? You go out there, you might as well say, you know, I'm in Fukushima. You know, look at me. Look at the freak show. No offense, right? You want to be able to do what you do discreetly. And that's why, you know, personally, I like this EMF 390 because it is discreet, and it's about the size of a cell phone. It doesn't have a whole bunch of antennas. The things are on the inside, and it's made with a composite plastic, so you know the RF goes right through it. That's why all of your you know, your routers are made of, like, you know, thin plastic. It's really good for the Wi-Fi, and it's also really good for the EF fields. So you should definitely check out the EF fields around your router because they're stronger than, you know, many other places in your home, as well as some of the laptops, especially the mini ones. They put off, like, that looks like a eugenics program as well. I'm telling you, I went to Best Buy today with the EMF 390, and I was just, you know, drifting around in front of, like, all the computers and the televisions and stuff. And that was scary. Like, this is something you want to have before you buy your next computer, before you buy your next, you know, television or whatever gadget you're going to buy. Especially, oh, here's another thing. I went to the mall, too. You know, I go everywhere. It's like Pokemon Go. I'm like, okay, where's the death traps? Because they're everywhere. And, you know, the little rides for the kids? We've all been on them, right? Well, some of them are worse than others. Some of them are okay. And then some of them, if they've got, like, some extra lights and gadgets in it, man, those things are, you know, they max out the meter. Like, you're in the, you know, 800 volts per meter plus. It's like, it says extreme, you know. And then you see people bringing their little kids, you know, to ride the ride, and it's just like, for fuck's sake. And you know, also, like, the anti-theft kind of, like, things that they put at the doors, those, like, magnet strips or whatever for the RFID. Those things put out a shitload of electric fields, as you can imagine. And sometimes you see little kids, like, playing in between them, like, you know, like it's cool because they light them up sometimes and this and that. Bad news, folks. I mean, this really wakes up your world. EMF 390, check that out. We'll leave the description to the product page in the comments so that you can find that. And they're taking off. I think everybody should have one, and we're going to be, you know, trading peak values, where are the hot spots, what to look for, and you know, once, you know, your friends see you have this thing, you know what I mean, they're going to want one, they're going to be concerned, they're going to tell their friends and family, and it's just going to spread, right? And all of a sudden everybody's going to be looking at their meters, looking at the research, looking at the charts, and then looking at, you know, the FCC and going, this is bullshit. And it's huge bullshit. Everybody should go see that documentary 5G Apocalypse. Just, you know, they've got some real interesting testimonies at Senate hearings and the like. They talk about the standards as well, and this becomes like, you know, an excellent hobby. You brush up on your math, you brush up on your science, and you'll see the dangers for yourself. And you know, it's not just, oh, you know, these channels on YouTube saying this, that, and the other. These are, you know, government laboratories. We've actually come. We had another graphic that we were going to load. We'll save it for the next show. It's kind of like the tables set up by the FCC. We've got a whole bunch of PDFs. We've got a whole bunch of stuff we're going to release. But you know, it really describes what the limits are. And I just kind of want to do a slight comparison summary for you. The safety limits for let's see, what ANSI, EPA safety limits, depending on the frequency range, which is really interesting. In their own limits, they put it at 0.2 milliwatts per centimeter squared, which isn't very huge for them in the very low frequency ranges. We're going to be getting into that, and it's from 30 to 300 megahertz, and then it goes up steadily up to 1 milliwatt centimeter squared, from 300 megahertz to 1500 megahertz, and then it goes up to 100 watts per meter squared at 15 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz. Now, you know, we'll set up charts. We'll make it easier. We're not just gonna, you know, throw out numbers, this, that, and the other. But those values literally are 2,000 times higher than what research is showing right now. And you know, we talked a little bit about the math, a little bit about the research, and in some of the previous broadcasts, probably like 2 or 3 days ago. Check out our two most recent broadcasts. We're talking more and more about it. But the information is being suppressed. It's very hard to find charts like this. It's very hard to find Longley-Rice models of RF radiation in your area. It's hard to find the maps of the death towers in your area. They're doing it on purpose, ladies and gentlemen. They don't want you to know. We're going to be talking about beam formation, phased arrays. We're going to be talking about what's coming. We're going to be talking about you know, what to look out for. But the physics of the antennas are interesting as well, because there's the near field, there's the far field, and in the near field, it's like this. It's literally like a nuclear reactor doing some crazy, you know, CERN type of shit, literally, and it forms like this classic wave of radio frequencies that, you know, you're more used to thinking about, you know, like ripples in the pond in the far stream, way down outside of like these reds, you know, red orange areas. And wave formation is you know, is something to consider, because it creates like hot pockets of radiation. And so it's kind of like, you know, after Fukushima, they were picking up hot zones in Tokyo. There were neighborhoods that were super hot and neighborhoods that weren't so hot. And with these antennas, it's kind of like the same thing. You're going to have like, you know, part of the block super hot, the other part not so hot, and it varies from street to street. But basic rule of thumb out there: if you can see the rectenna and you're within like a mile of it, you're getting dosed. If you hide behind a building that's thick enough and you can't see the rectenna anymore, you're basically shielded from that array. But of course, with 5G, there'll be no escape. That's the problem, right? They're going to be putting them up like every, you know, basically every 200 yards. But what I'm picking up right now, unless you're out in the country, like literally in the small towns, you're not in the safe zone. As soon as you start going into medium, big size cities, you know, even, you know, smaller urban areas, if they got a downtown, if they've got anything above like 2 or 3 stories, you know, you're talking about a different environment, because now you know, these radio waves are ricocheting off the buildings, and they've got to compensate for that and interference, and so they juice them up even more. So it'll be real interesting to see what people are picking up out there in the big cities. We've gone to like let's just say a medium-sized city with the EMF so far, and the numbers are staggering. But it's about, I'd say, like a fifth as bad as the highest reports of basically 10 watts per meter squared, and that's the outer limits of the FCC. So look, if you we're going to be doing series on different angles of the threat. We're going to be finding all of these different clusters. Every day we're finding new clusters related to death towers. If you know of clusters that were like in your area but they've been buried, since you remember, in 2008, 2004, this, that, and the other. By the looks of the censorship on Facebook, by the looks of the censorship on the death towers, you can't find a death tower map anywhere. They're wiping everything. It's like the Matrix is, glitching and wiping everything, and it's the final entrapment. This is our, last chance, basically, before they roll out 5G everywhere, to stop it. After it's rolled out, it's going to be super hard to take it down. It's like, after a conviction, try getting it overturned, After they pass an ordinance, try getting it overturned. Once those towers are up, try taking them down. It's going to be much more difficult. So the best solution here is prevention. It's being proactive, not reactive. These things are bad enough already. And again, go check out that documentary 5G Apocalypse. Check out the product page for the EMF390. We've got some charts, some information there, and a link to the manufacturer. That link is the affiliate link that will bring you to that page so that we can get credit for the sale. I guess we're the salesman here, but it's a product worth having. I've got it. I take it everywhere. It's better than Pokemon Go. And we'll be setting up a sign up for a group for this. We're going to be rebranding something completely different on Facebook, not associated with the other pages that have been marked for shadow banning. And we'll be starting a group there, and also a membership area on our website. So if you don't like the fake book, we'll have something on the website that'll basically mirror the information that we're putting out there for that community. You'll sign up for that, and if you have the EMF 390, you'll be privy to that information, as well as those that subscribe to the Patreon. And eventually, after our study is concluded, perhaps in a year or two, we'll start releasing the magnitudes. Although I think if we see some stranger than fiction stuff out there, we'll definitely share it, because if we see things that are really, whacked in terms of readings, we'll definitely put it out there. We know that, according to the Wall Street Journal, 1 in 10 death towers are surpassing the FCC limits, which are already, 2,000 times higher than BioInitiative and many of the other labs out there, to say the least. And we'll be getting into the specifics. We'll be getting into the numbers. Like and share. Feel free to mirror. Check out that product page. Put it on your list. If you can't get it today, put it on your to-do list, because this is a handy tool. And aesthetically, it looks better than having the other things with the big antennas jumping out. And the price is one of the best parts about this product. So there you go. Until the next time, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this, you are the resistance.